Spring camp week number 3 begins today, which is Monday. And a happy Monday to you from the Podcast Daily. That is Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. We will be back in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center to hear from Ryan Day. Going to have a couple days of media availability this week. And then the big one, Bill, Student Appreciation Day on Saturday. So as you are looking ahead, I don't know, having a little Monday musing around in your brain, what are you hoping to learn this week?
I'm just excited to get all the answers on Saturday. It's Student Appreciation Day. Everything will be solidified for the 2025 Buckeyes during those 2 hours on Saturday in the Woody. No, I think it's generally, I think it's a time to not just that practice, but this week, I think starting with Ryan Day on Monday, to get a little clarity, I guess, on some things, not finality, but some clarity on stuff as the pads have been on for a while now, and they're coming off of a weekend where I'm assuming they got some scrimmaging in. Just how things shook out from that, and I, for me specifically, I'm thinking along the lines of scrimmage and drilling down a little more, I think, on the defensive line and where those things stand. I kind of wish that Larry Johnson's media availability was after they'd done some scrimmaging, but it wasn't. So that's just sort of the nature of what this is. But I'm going to continue to wonder about the depth, especially at defensive tackle, probably like up until the Texas game. But there were some things that I think could be said, this week after they've gotten, I think, at least a little bit more data on exactly what that looks like, that I think could make me feel a little bit better about that. I think it's probably like the biggest deal on the team outside of quarterback, as we've said, like what exactly that is going to look like behind Edric Houston and Caden McDonald. But I don't know that, like, to this point, that I've seen / heard anything that makes me think that's trending like in an awesome direction. Not to say that it's trending in a bad direction, but I just think it's been a little, I don't know, stagnant there, trying to figure out exactly what that looks like. So as we head into this week, that is what's first on my mind, I think.
I wonder, is CJ Hicks a niche a niche? Is he a role guy? Is there any world where he can be like a regular defensive end? I think, Bill, you're onto something there. They've played enough football now in the last 2 weeks where they've had the pads on, they're doing stuff. There was a scrimmage on Saturday. Like, I want to know how Julian Sayin and Tavian St. Clair and Lincoln Keenholz handled some live pressure. Not that they're getting hit, but I'm interested to see how that would have looked from Ryan Day's perspective, especially with Julian and Lincoln Keenholz and how they handle that. And I'm also more and more interested in something that Austin has brought up here twice in the last 10 days or so. Is there any world where Austin Saraveld is this team's starting left tackle and Ethan Anianwa moves inside? Or because I've heard rumblings that maybe Anianwa has been repping a little bit of guard, and so that's got me just going, are we just moving parts around and playing puzzles because it's spring and you can do that? Or is there any real world where the best 5 alignment includes Austin Saraveld at the starting left tackle?
That's, I think, going to be what everyone, even Bill Landis, will be watching the offensive line alignment on Saturday.
Even Bill? I doubt it. He's never watched that before.
Even Bill. I don't know that Ethan Onion was the one that would necessarily kick inside, and moving one of these guys inside seems like, I don't know, a little bit of a stretch still in my mind, because that's the one spot where we've talked about, you have Tegra Shabola, you have Luke Montgomery, you have Carson Hinsman. Austin Saraveld became like in somewhat surplus to needs to go out to play tackle and help them address the depth there. To me, it felt like I went into the start of practice 2 weeks ago and was like, Onion was going to start at left tackle and Philip Daniels is going to start at right tackle. And I think it seems we haven't seen them do anything in pads and full contact, because we didn't have any open practice all of last week, and we won't see any until Saturday. So I have nothing to base any evaluation of those 2 transfer tackles off anything. It just seems like, based on the track record and the tape for Onianwa, that he is still going to probably claim one of those jobs. And then it became, well, maybe Austin Saraveld will edge out Daniels, but I don't know. I mean, and they're not going to decide that on Saturday either, but they're going to have a lot more to work on.
Yeah, that still feels most likely, but we do live in a time and a place where occasionally a player makes himself indispensable. And I don't, and there's like this ascension of Austin Saraville that's happening that, as far as being a leader, I mean, if you look at the dude, he looks like he's a 28-year-old, 50-year NFL guy. I mean, I don't, or
Only 28
with a 48-year-old man's hairline, but he's, I wonder, is something happening with him where it's like, well, he's playing, he's too pivotal now for us to not have on the field. And I'm interested in that because it's rare and it's not impossible. We saw 2 years ago, Julian Fleming was an Iron Buckeye, and he didn't end up translating that to the field for Ohio State in his final season with the Buckeyes, as far as being, an indispensable part of the game plan. But I just wonder, for a team that is trying to protect a new quarterback, if there's any sense that, hey, Austin's put himself in this position. Or on the flip side of that, Ethan Anianwa had really good tape at Rice, right? But like, you're at Ohio State now. Is he able to get there every day? Is he able to be that guy every day? And I think that's a conversation we haven't really had yet, because we haven't had our media day with offensive line and Tyler Bowen. But I'm interested from Ryan Day's perspective. Are you seeing Ethan Anianwa be a guy that is like locked in, or is there a world where Austin Saraville steals it from him?
That would be, so I'm just going to assume they paid a whole lot of money to get Ethan Onianwa to come to Ohio State to play left tackle. So that if he gets to Ohio State and he can't play left tackle, that's a problem.
Well, you can't cut him,
No, but you wasted money. I'm just like, I am fully into the idea that Austin Saraville can win a starting job on this offensive line. If it's at left tackle at the expense of Ethan Onianwa, I don't think that's great.
Clearly,
and literally anywhere else, I'm good.
Yeah, obviously, this is conjecture, but I think it's probably more likely that they're just moving parts around in spring to see what can happen, and to make sure that Austin Saraville gets reps and to keep him on the field, because, as Austin said, like, there's a surplus on the interior of the line right now, and so maybe you have to do that in order to get Austin Saraville the reps he needs in spring ball. But I'm just interested in the idea, because it seems like all of a sudden you've got a quagmire on the offensive line with extra dudes.
I don't think it's a quagmire.
It's not a quagmire. That's the situation that you want to be in. We've spent so many years.
I just like to use the wrong words.
Quagmire is a good word. Yeah.
It's an offensive line controversy, Berm. I don't know why you don't want to lean into it.
That's exactly the point. I'm trying to avoid this, but you guys are just like, oh, Ethan Onianwa needs to be cut. And I'm like, I didn't say that.
I don't think anyone said that. I mean, almost every year that I've covered this team, it's like, that top five is great. And if you have one injury, you're going to be in a world of hurt. Somehow they had 3 injuries last year and survived it in truly remarkable fashion. I don't view them as in that situation, Bill. I know that you agree with this. Like, they've got probably 8 guys 6 that they know can play at Ohio State, and 2 that they trust to play at Ohio State that they brought in, at least, right? I mean, that's what every program is trying to build, and they've done a great job of that, even though we're only talking about 2 weeks of spring camp at this point.
Yeah, I suppose I could sound like hypocritical talking out both sides of my mouth when I say this. Like, I think the offensive line generally is in a very good spot. I think if your scouting / NIL operation pointed to a guy like Ethan Onianwa and said that's a left tackle and paid him accordingly, and then he ends up not being one, that is a slight issue in identifying, I guess, where that money should go. But it doesn't mean he'll be a bad player. Maybe he'll be a great guard. I also think he's probably going to be the left tackle, and all this is kind of a moot point. So I think that their offensive line depth is probably the best that I've seen it. It's been rare even that I've been like super concerned about the starting 5. But there's always that question going in the spring of like, do you have 6, 7, 8 or whatever? Like, I really do think they like, that's an easy yes with this group as it's currently constructed. So they got to figure out what the whole picture looks like. And I think they're going to rotate offensive linemen during the season anyway. But I guess like if Saturday, I mean, if we show up Saturday student appreciation day, and I guess like if Ethan Onianwa is like still not the left tackle at all with the starting offensive line, that'll pique my curiosity, no doubt about it. But I still look at, if I were a betting man, which I'm not, I would bet on him being the left tackle when they play Texas.
I'm just here to drive conversation, guys. Okay. I'm just asking the questions that are on
You're
my
the straw that stirs the drink, my man.
I'm just asking the questions that are on my mind. We've seen only 45 minutes of 2 practices. Ethan Aniano was not there either of those times at left tackle as the primary guy. So I'm just saying, what if? What if?
It's a great question. I mean, I think that more than ever, this whole spring camp has been about what's going on with the offensive and defensive line. And we've taken a little bit of break from the quarterback conversation, but I don't know, Bill, I don't think I can avoid it this week because we're actually going to see some form of scrimmaging, not a full scrimmage on Saturday. I don't think that'll be how Ryan Day structures it during Student Appreciation Day, but we normally see some live football, and they will have now scrimmaged some last week. So Ryan Day doesn't generally pull many punches with his evaluation. So I think that that's going to have to be a primary topic with him later today in the Woody. And then Saturday, whatever we see is not to name a starter, not to point to a depth chart necessarily, but like, what does it look like when they're actually throwing 11 on 11? Because we did not see that in the first 2 practices and didn't see anything at all last week.
No, and we'll get to see them too. I imagine all 3 like play with the ones for stretches too, which is kind of how they structure things. So no, it'll be good. I'm not I'm gonna try like to not make too much of it, I guess. But I am human, and I think anyone there would want to start to extrapolate what we see on Saturday. And this is kind of our first sample size of doing that. We've never seen really Julian Sayin play with the first team offense. We'll get to see that. We'll get to see the growth that Lincoln Kienholz has made, which I thought like, when we talked to Billy Fessler, he seemed to be pretty happy with the strides that Lincoln has made. And then like Tavian St. Clair, I'm putting absolutely no pressure on that kid to like do anything other than look like a freshman, if I'm being honest. Which I guess like sets a kind of a low bar, and if he clears it, then good for him. But I think it's much more about Sayin and Kienholz, and if that looks close, and I guess how Ryan Day talks about them on Monday will be somewhat illuminating, because I think if he were, I don't know, like somewhat like unhappy / let down about what he's seen so far, even if he doesn't express that directly, we will be able to glean that from what his answers are, because as you said, he doesn't tend to sugarcoat things when it comes to the quarterback competition.
I mean, do you anticipate, either of you think that he would actually like say he's happy with where things are at this point? Because I would doubt it.
He definitely won't say he's happy. It's just to what degree is he unhappy?
Are we going to be able to parse the word like satisfied out of his answer? Because I don't think that that's going to happen.
Well, I think that's what makes this press conference on Monday and the Student Appreciation Day scrimmage on Saturday so interesting. Like, as Bill said, to what degree of dissatisfied is Ryan Day? I think that's what he's not. Neither of these guys have gone out there and had to face real bullets in the horseshoe, or whatever the count is now, 250 days, or what is it, 150 days? I don't know. I guess we'll get a reminder from Ryan Day about how many days it is until Texas today as well. Like, they haven't had to go out there and do it. They're not going to have, outside of the rough 3 quarters in the Cotton Bowl for Lincoln Kienholz, there's no body of work for them. So they're learning all of this on the fly. Now, they've had multiple years for Lincoln in practice with facing Ohio State's defense. Julian has a year in the program, but that's not enough to necessarily go out there and be the expectation in Ohio State is to be a Heisman Trophy candidate and a potential first-round draft pick and win a national championship. So I don't think after 2 weeks of spring camp that Ryan Day is going to come out and be like, yep, Julian Sayin and or Lincoln Kienholz or Tavian St. Clair are absolutely ready for that. I think he's definitely going to be focusing on the negatives, and I bet that there have been a lot of them.
Yeah, which I actually think is okay this time of year. With
it is, no
like,
doubt.
It's sort of like I almost like. I guess Ryan Day would love it if they just went out there and were like just slinging it around and everything was perfect. That'd be great. But I think there's part of this process where you do need to make mistakes and then figure out your way around them to become a better quarterback. So,
well, Bill, you can make a mistake, but what's important is that you learn from it and don't make it again.
Exactly. We don't want repeat offenders. Yeah.
I just came up with that.
You should coach.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to make that.
You
point.
said exactly what I was going to say, so it's fine.
Great. Well, I mean, what do you think he's going to say, Berm?
I think he's going to say that each of the guys is coming along nicely. There's areas he would still like to see improvement. And he's certainly not feeling like they're ready for a game at this point. And so everything is just figuring out how to get ready for that Texas game in 151 or 150 days, whatever it is. But I think that's funny because we could probably predict what he's going to say, but it's also true. And so it's not like he's obfuscating or doing coach speak, because I think the reality is in the times we've seen Julian Sayin in practice, when things were moving quick, it's a different world. And so all of the hype, all of the conversation, people talking to Will Howard about him and everyone else about him, like, people are going to expect that Julian Sayin is going to, at this point, look like a polished, clean, completely perfect quarterback, and he's just not. So for Ryan Day, I actually think he probably is enjoying the opportunity to teach and get a chance to work with these guys from a more rudimentary level. And I expect that he will be not happy with where they are, but he will be content with the progress from the start of camp to now, which is the most important thing, because it really is a day-to-day, are you getting better from the yesterday situation? And I actually think Saturday for Julian, this past Saturday, not next Saturday, probably was an eye-opener. Once you go out there in a scrimmage situation and all of the pressure is on you and people expect you to be the guy, I would love to hear Ryan Day's analysis, evaluation, grade of Julian Sayin from Saturday, from 2 days ago, to see if that was anywhere near what he wanted. Because I think that first scrimmage, when you are the supposed man, it is an eye opener one way or another. So I want to know which way the eye was opened. Was it like, oh, he stepped into it and he looked the part, or is it, oh boy, there's still a long way to go? I think maybe there's a chance of both, but I don't think.
Well, I think part of the reason that I'm so looking forward to Saturday, and I understand the decision, Ryan Day, by this point in spring, we would have normally seen something. We had an additional practice, a padded practice, some scrimmage. Nobody has said this to me. I'm speculating wildly. I think the reason that we haven't seen anything since day 2 is because both of these quarterbacks are working through things and making mistakes and learning things for the first time. And it probably wasn't looking pretty, and putting additional pressure by having, 50 people critiquing every throw probably would have been unfair to form some opinions about that and to watch it in real time. Would have been nice to see and track the progress, but I completely understand. So what does it look like on Saturday once you have some level of comfort, not all comfort, not fully comfortable, but 2 weeks worth of practices to settle into that? They're probably going to look much cleaner. And I think I don't think it was by accident that was the way that this spring camp schedule was set up for the media.
I'm going to chart every throw and name a starter Saturday. So
are you?
Yeah.
Great. Well,
I guarantee
back
you
again.
Two things. A, Bill is not actually going to chart all the throws. B, someone in the media will.
B is off the board. That is definitely going to happen. Is there anything else that you want to ask Ryan Day on Monday, Bill?
No, I think we covered a lot of that. There's, in the effort to try to get a better idea of what exactly the defensive operation is going to look like from a schematic standpoint, something did catch my ear a little bit when we talked to the linebackers last week. When I was talking with Peyton Pierce, and he was sort of describing the different dynamics within the linebacker room, and I thought it was interesting that the first thing he said about Arvell Reese is how much of a menace Arvell Reese is off the edge. Which is I think Arvell, I think we probably could have rightly assumed that would be the case, but it felt purposeful that Peyton Pierce said that the first thing about Arvell, and then he said Arvell can also do everything. So we know that Arvell has been impressing people. I think drilling down a little more with Ryan Day on exactly how he's doing that is probably worthwhile as we try to get a better handle on what exactly his role will be in this defense.
Did I mention it 6 weeks ago, or did I just think it, that there was some machinations of maybe Arvell Reese also moving down to where CJ Hicks is? Did I say that, or did I just? There was some
thought it.
There was some art. There was some back and forth conversation, and from what I understand, the linebacker coach was attempting to make sure that didn't happen. But I think it's interesting in the defensive stuff because I've talked to recruits over the last couple of days, and one of them, a linebacker edge player from Cincinnati in the class of 2027, Antoine Higgins, told me that one of the things he took away from this weekend's visit to Ohio State was James Laurinaitis's response, reaction, how happy he is with the new defense. And I'm like, man, I don't know. I'm wondering exactly what new things they're going to have in it. And it certainly seems more and more like the linebackers being more of an edge rusher is happening outside of CJ Hicks. So that's interesting. It's not the sexiest thing, but my other thing I'm kind of interested in is with Max Clare being certainly more of a slot receiver type, and I know he's working to develop into a full-time every down tight end. But if Will Kazmarek had any issues, if he couldn't go, if he was in a boot or whatever for the rest of spring, hypothetically, what's the battle like between Jelani Thurman and Bennett Christian to be what I would consider actually tight end one at this point? Because I don't consider Max Clare like T1 at this point. I think he's like an X factor.
Didn't you just argue with me about that last week?
No.
Because I said that Will Kazmarek was tight end one, and you said no, Max Clare's the most important tight end.
Maybe I'm coming around.
Wow. I don't think I've ever won an argument with you.
Max Clare is the one that's most likely to be used in other ways. And so I don't feel like he should be in the same conversation, I guess, which is fair. Now he needs to learn and continue to get better and be a regular every down tight end, but an inline tight end. But I'm interested in, is the Jelani Thurman glow up happening or not? That's really what I'm interested in, because I still believe if he can pick up the part of the game that Bennett Christian excels in and add it to what he does, then all of a sudden you have a whole different monster at tight end if Jelani Thurman is interested in being that guy, just from the size. Now, again, he still needs to work on catching the ball and all that stuff to be a regularly counted on player. But I'm interested just with Will Kazmarek, if take him out of the equation for a couple weeks, what happens?
Guess we'll find out. We got a busy week ahead at Ohio State, spring camp number 3. Looking forward to another busy week of coverage with the Buckeyes. We'll be bringing it to you all week long on the podcast, including a Saturday snap judgments. I don't think we're going to have snap judgments after Ryan Day's press conference, because we're going to be heading over to Roosters for the live show. So we'll be breaking that down. Maybe we'll get Bill over there again. We'll have Bob and Jay-Z. We'll have a great time and get set for that. So a lot more coming. Spring camp is almost over, though, which is sad. I don't want to say it out loud, but we're through 2 weeks and we only have 2 left. So let's make the most of it. Thanks for starting week 3 with us on the podcast daily with some Monday musing with Bill Landis, Jeremy Birmingham, and me, Austin Ward. We'll talk to you later. See you.